This is Ovid's Metamorphoses, translated into English by Alan Mandelbaum. Book 10. But Hymen had to leave the Isle of Crete. Clad in his saffron-colored cloak, he cleaved the never-ending air until he reached the home of the Cauconians in Thrace. For he had heard the voice of Orpheus, who was to wed, who pleaded for his presence. He came, but came in vain. He did not bless the rite with sacred utterance. His face displayed no joy. He brought no hope, no grace. Even the torch he held kept sputtering. Eyes teared and smarted from the smoke. No flame, however much he shook that brand, would blaze. The start was sad, and sadder still the end. The bride, just wed, met death. For even as she crossed the meadows with her naiad friends, she stepped upon a snake. The viper sank its teeth into her ankle. Orpheus wept within the upper world, but when his share of long lament was done, the poet dared to cross the gate of Taenarus, to seek his wife among the shades consigned to Styx. Among the fluttering clouds, the phantom forms of those who had been buried, he drew close to both Proserpina and Pluto, he who rules the dead, the joyless kingdom's king. Then Orpheus plucked his lyre as he sang, "O gods who rule the world beneath the earth, the world to which all those of mortal birth descend, if I may speak the truth to you, without the subterfuge that liars use, I've not come here to see dark Tartarus, nor have I come to chain the monster sun Medusa bore, that horror whose 3 necks bear bristling serpents. This has brought me here. I seek my wife. She stepped upon a viper, a snake that shot his venom into her young body, robbing her of years of life. I'll not deny that I have tried. I wish that I had had the power to resist. But love has won. To him I must submit. Within the upper world he has much fame, but I'm not sure if here that god has gained renown, though I do hope so. If the tale they tell of an abduction long ago is not a lie, why then you too do owe your union to the force of love. And now I pray you, by these fearful sights and by the silences of this immense abyss, reknit the severed threads, restore the life undone too quickly of Eurydice. For all of us are yours to rule by right. Our stay above is brief. When that is done, we all must, sooner, later, speed to one same dwelling place. We all shall take this way. Our final home is here. The human race must here submit to your unending sway. She, too, will yet be yours when she has lived in full the course of her allotted years. I ask only this of you. Lend her to me. But if the fates deny my wife this gift, then I shall stay here too. I won't go back. And you can then rejoice. You'll have 2 deaths. The bloodless shades shed tears. They heard his plea. The chant the Thracian had accompanied with chords upon his lyre. Tantalus no longer tried to catch the fleeing waves. Ixion's wheel stood still, entranced, amazed. The vultures did not prey on Tityus's liver. The Danaids left their urns, and Sisyphus, you sat upon your stone. It's even said that, moved by Orpheus's song, the Furies wept, the only tears the Furies ever shed. Nor could Proserpina, nor he himself, the ruler of the lower world, refuse the plea of Orpheus of Rhodope. They called Eurydice. She was among the recent dead. As she advanced, her steps were faltering, her wounds still brought distress. The Thracian poet took her hand, he led his wife away, but heard the god's command. His eyes must not turn back until he'd passed the valley of Avernus. Just one glance at her, and all he had received would be lost irrevocably. But upward path was dark and steep. The mists they met were thick, the silences unbroken. But at last they'd almost reached the upper world when he, afraid that she might disappear again, and longing so to see her, turned to gaze back at his wife. At once she slipped away and down, his arms stretched out convulsively to clasp and to be clasped in turn, but there was nothing but the unresisting air. And as she died again, Eurydice did not reproach her husband. How could she have faulted him except to say that he loved her indeed? One final faint farewell, so weak it scarcely reached his ears, was all she said. Then, back to the abyss, she fell. And when that second death had struck his wife, the poet, stunned, was like the man whose fright on seeing Cerberus, three-headed hound, enchained by Hercules, was so complete that he was not set free from fear until, his human nature gone, he had become a body totally transformed to stone. Or one might liken Orpheus instead to Olenus, who took the blame himself for his Lethea's arrogance when she, unfortunately, boasted of her beauty. Lethea, you and he were once two hearts whom love had joined, but now you are two rocks that Ida holds on its well-watered slopes. But then, when he had found his speech once more, the poet pleaded, begging Charon for a second chance to reach the farther shore. The boatman chased him off. For 7 days, huddled along the banks of Styx, he stayed. There he shunned Ceres' gifts. He had no taste for food. He called on desperation, pain, and tears. With these alone he could sustain himself. But after Orpheus had arraigned the gods of Erebus for cruelty, he left. He sought the peak of Rhodope and Haemus' heights, where north winds never cease. 3 times the ever-wheeling sun had come to Pisces' watery sign. 3 years had gone, and Orpheus in all that time had shunned the love of women. This for his misfortune, or for his having pledged his heart to one and to no other woman. That did not prevent their wanting him, and many sought the poet. All those women met repulse and grief. Indeed, he was the one who taught the Thracian men this practice. They bestow their love on tender boys, and so enjoy first fruits, the brief springtime, the flowers of youth. There was a hill, and on that hill a glade, an ample span of meadow grass, a plain that was endowed with green, but had no shade. Yet when the poet heaven-born would play on his resounding lyre, shade on shade would seek that glade. Together with the tree of the Chaonians, bees came to listen. The tall and leafy oak, the tender linden, the poplar, shape that suited Helios's daughters, the willow, most at home near flowing waters, the virgin laurel, beech, and brittle hazel, the ash, so fit for fashioning spear shafts, the silver fir with its smooth trunk, the myrtle with its two hues, and the delightful platan, the maple with its shifting colors, and the water-loving lotus, evergreen boxwood as well as slender tamarisk, and with its deep blue berries, the viburnum, and bent beneath its acorn's weight, the ilex. You, ivy, with your feet that twist and flex, came too, and at your side came tendrils rich with clustered grapes, and elm trees draped with vines, the mountain ash, the pitch pine, the arbutus, red with its fruits, the pliant palm, the prize of victors, and that pine which tucks its boughs up high to form its shaggy crown, the tree, dear to the mother of the gods, Cybele, if it be true that Attis, for her sake, shed his own human form, that he might take the stiff trunk of that pine as his new shape. The cone-shaped cypress joined this crowd of trees, though now a tree. It once had been a boy beloved by the god who makes the bowstring and the lyre strings vibrate. For, sacred to the nymphs who make their home on the Carthaean plain, a stag once roamed, a stately stag, whose antlers were so broad that they provided ample shade for him. Those antlers gleamed with gold. Down to his chest, a collar rich with gems hung from his neck. Upon his forehead, dangling from thin thongs, there was a silver boss, one he had worn from birth. Against his hollow temples glowed pearl earrings, and that stag forgot his own timidity and, without fear, approached the homes of men. He let his neck be stroked by all, yes, even those he did not know. But, Cyparissus, it was you to whom he was most dear, you, handsomest of all the Caans. Let him out to pastures new and to the waters of the purest springs. Now you weave varied garlands for his horns, or, seated like a horseman on his back, now here, now there, you ride him joyfully with purple reins that guide his tender mouth. But once, at high noon on a summer day, when, heated by the sun's most torrid rays, the curving claws of the shore-loving crab were blazing on the grassy ground, the stag lay down to rest, to seek cool woodland shade. And it was then that, accidentally, a javelin sharp shaft, it had been cast by Cyparissus, pierced the stag. The wound was fierce, the stag was dying, and at that the boy was set on dying too. Oh, Phoebus tried words that could console the boy. Indeed, he urged him to restrain his grief, to keep some sense of measure. But the boy did not relent. He groaned still more. He begged the gods to grant this greatest gift, to let him grieve forever. As his life-blood drained away with never-ending tears, his limbs began to take a greenish cast, and the soft hair that used to cluster on his snow-white brow became a bristling crest. The boy was now a rigid tree with frail and spiring crown that gazes on the heavens and the stars. The god in sadness groaned. He said, "I'll mourn for you, and you shall mourn for others, and, beside the mourners, you shall always stand." Such was the grove that gathered round the poet. In that assembly of wild beasts and birds the Thracian singer sat. He tried the chords, he plucked them with his thumb, and when he heard that, although each note had a different sound, it stood in right relation to the rest, he lifted up his voice. This was his chant. "O Muse, my mother, let my song begin with Jove. He is the king of everything. I've often sung his power before. I've told the story of the giants. In solemn mode I chanted of those smashing lightning bolts. that on the Phlegraean fields were hurled by Jove. But now my matter needs more tender tones. I sing of boys the gods have loved, and girls incited by unlawful lusts and passions, who paid the penalty for their transgressions. The king of gods was once afire with love for Phrygian Ganymede, and hit upon a guise that, just this once, he thought might be more suitable than being Jove himself, a bird. But of all birds he thought that one alone was worthiest, the bird with force enough to carry Jove's own thunderbolts. Without delay Jove beat the air with his deceiving wings, snatched up the Trojan boy, and even now, despite the wrath of Juno, he still fulfills his role, the page of Jove. The boy prepares Jove's nectar, fills his cups. And you too, Hyacinthus, would have been set high within the sky by Phoebus, if your wretched fate had not forestalled his wish. Yet in your way you are eternal now. Whenever spring has banished winter, and the rainy fish gives way before the ram, it's then you rise and flower once again where earth is green. My father loved you more than he loved any other. Even Delphi, set at the very center of the earth, was left without its tutelary god. For Phoebus went instead to visit you in unwalled Sparta on Eurotas's banks, neglecting both his lyre and his shafts. Not heeding who he was, his higher tasks, alongside you the god did not refuse to carry nets, to hold the dogs in leash. He was your comrade on rough mountain peaks, and lingering beside you he could feed his flame of love. And now the Titan's sun was at midpoint, between the night to come and one that had already gone. And Phoebus and Hyacinthus shed their clothes, anoint their bodies, gleaming with smooth olive oil. The two are set to see which one can cast the discus farther. Phoebus is the first to lift and poise the broad and heavy disc, then fling it high. It bursts across the sky and rends the clouds along its path. Its flight is long. At last the hard earth feels its fall, its weight, a throw that shows what can be done when strength and skill are joined. The Spartan boy is reckless. Risking all for sport, he runs to pick the discus up. But the hard ground sends back the heavy bronze. As it rebounds, it strikes you in the face, O Hyacinthus. You and the god are pale. The god lifts up your sagging form. He tries to warm you, tries to staunch your cruel wound. And he applies herbs that might stay your soul as it takes flight. His arts are useless. Nothing now can heal that wound. As lilies, poppies, violets, if loosened, as they hang from yellow stems in a well-watered garden, fade at once, and, with their withered heads grown heavy, bend. They cannot stand erect. Instead, they must gaze at the ground. Just so, your dying face lies slack. Too weak for its own weight, your neck falls back upon your shoulder. Sparta's son, you have been cheated, Phoebus cries. You've lost the flower of your youth. As I confront your wound, I witness my own crime, my guilt, my grief. It's my right hand that has inscribed your end. I am the author of your death. And yet, what crime is mine? Can play, can sport be blamed? Can having loved be called a fault? If I could only pay for what I've done by dying for or with you, you are the one so worthy. But the law of fate denies that chance to me. Yet I shall always have you, Hyacinthus, in my heart, just as your name shall always be upon my lips. The lyre my fingers pluck, the songs I chant shall celebrate you, and as a new flower you'll bear, inscribed upon you, my lament, And, too, in time to come, the bravest man shall be identified with you. Ajax's own letters on your petals shall be stamped. As he spoke these true words, the blood that had been spilled upon the ground and stained the grass is blood no more. Instead, more brilliant than the purple dye of Tyre, a flower sprang. Though lily-shaped, it was not silver-white. This flower was purple. Then, not yet content, Phoebus, for it was he who'd brought about this wonder that would honor Hyacinthus, inscribed upon the petals his lament. With his own hand he wrote these letters: Alpha Iota, signs of sad outcry, I, and Sparta too, is not ashamed to have, as its own son, a Hyacinthus. They still honor him each year, just as their fathers always did. The Hyacinthia, their festival, begins with an August processional. But if you ever chance to ask the city, so rich with metals, Amathus, if she would lay proud claim to the Propoetides as daughters, she'd refuse to claim that brood. And she is just as ready to disown those other old inhabitants of hers whose foreheads were disfigured by two horns, from which they also took their name, Cerastes. Before their doors there used to stand an altar of Jove, the god of hospitality. A stranger, ignorant of what had caused the bloodstains on that altar, might have thought that was the blood of sacrifices brought for Jove, of suckling calves or full-grown sheep from Amathian herds. But in fact it was the blood of guests. Incensed, the generous Venus was ready to desert her Cyprus, to leave her cities and her plains. And yet, she said, these sights are dear to me, these towns. What crime is theirs? What evil have they done? This sacrilegious race, they are the ones to pay the penalty for profanation. Exile or death, or else a punishment, midway between their death or banishment. Can that be any penalty except a change of form? But even as she asked that question, wondering what shape is best, her eyes fell on their horns. These can be left, so she reminds herself, and she transforms their massive bodies into savage bulls. And the obscene Propoetides had dared to stir the wrath of Venus. They declared that she was not a goddess. And, they say, this was the penalty that Venus made those girls of Cyprus pay for their outrage. They were the first to prostitute their grace, to sell their bodies, and when shame was gone, and they could blush no more, they were transformed, the step was brief enough, into hard stones. Pygmalion had seen the shameless lives of Cyprus's women, and disgusted by the many sins to which the female mind had been inclined by nature, he resigned himself. For years he lived alone, without a spouse. He chose no wife to share his couch. Meanwhile, Pygmalion began to carve in snow-white ivory with wondrous art a female figure more exquisite than a woman who was born could ever match. That done, he falls in love with his own work. The image seems, in truth, to be a girl. One could have thought she was alive and keen to stir, to move her limbs, had she not been too timid. With his art, he's hidden art. He is enchanted, and within his heart, the likeness of a body now ignites a flame. He often lifts his hand to try his work, to see if it indeed is flesh or ivory. He still will not admit it is but ivory. He kisses it. It seems to him that, in return, He's kissed. He speaks to it, embraces it. At each caress the image seems to yield beneath his fingers, and he is afraid he'll leave some sign, some bruise. And now he murmurs words of love, and now he offers gifts that girls find pleasing. Shells, smooth pebbles, little birds, and many-colored flowers, painted balls, and amber tears that the Heliades let drop from trees. He, after draping it with robes, adorns its fingers with fine gems, its neck with a long necklace. Light beads hang down from its ears, and ribbons grace its breast. All this is fair enough, but it's not less appealing in its nakedness. He rests the statue on the covers of his bed, on fabric dyed with hues of Sidon shells. He calls that form the maid that shares his couch, and sets its head on cushions, downy, soft, delicately, as if it could respond. The day of Venus's festival had come, the day when from all Cyprus people thronged. And now their curving horns are sheathed with gold, the heifers fall beneath the fatal blows that strike their snow-white necks. The incense smokes. Pygmalion, having paid the honors owed to Venus, stopped before the altar. There the sculptor offered timidly this prayer: "O gods, if you indeed can grant all things, then let me have the wife I want." And here he did not dare to say, "my ivory girl," but said instead, "one like my ivory girl." And golden Venus, she indeed was there at her own feast day, understood his prayer. 3 times the flame upon her altar flared more brightly, darting high into the air, an omen of the goddess's kindly care. At once Pygmalion, at home again, seeks out the image of the girl. He bends over his couch, he kisses her, and when it seems her lips are warm, he leans again to kiss her, and he reaches with his hands to touch her breasts. The ivory had lost its hardness. Now his fingers probe. Grown soft, the statue yields beneath the sculptor's touch, just as Hymettian wax beneath the sun grows soft and, molded by the thumb, takes on so many varied shapes, in fact becomes more pliant as one plies it. Stupefied, delighted yet in doubt, afraid that he may be deceived, the lover tests his dream. It is a body. Now the veins beneath his anxious fingers pulse. Pygmalion pours out rich thanks to Venus. Finally his lips press lips that are not forgeries. The young girl feels these kisses. Blushing she lifts up her timid eyes. She seeks the light, and even as she sees the sky, she sees her lover. Venus graces with her presence the wedding she has brought about. And when the moon shows not as crescent but as orb for the 9th time, Pygmalion's wife gives birth to Paphos, and in honor of that child, Cyprus has since been called the Paphian Isle. And Paphos's son was Cinyras, a man who, if he'd not had children, might have found some happiness. The tale I now would sing is dread indeed. O daughters, fathers, leave. Or if your minds delight in listening, do not put trust in me, do not believe the truth that I will tell. Or if you must believe it, then believe the penalty that punishes such acts. In any case, if nature can permit so foul a sin to see the light, I do congratulate this region of the world, my Thracian race. I'm grateful that we are so far away from lands where such obscenities take place. Panchaea's land is rich in balsam and in cinnamon and unguents, and its trees drip incense, and its soil has many flowers. What need had it for myrrh? Did it deserve so sad a plant? Oh, Myrrha, Cupid had no part in your undoing, for he says his arrow did not strike you. He declares his torches innocent. The firebrand and venom-swollen snakes were brought from Styx by one of the three sisters. She did this to crush you. Yes, to hate a father is a crime, but love like yours is worse than hate. Young lords from every land, the noblest men from all the Orient, have sought your hand. Among all these choose one as your dear husband. But, Myrrha, there is one who can't belong to those from whom you choose, and she, in truth, knows that. She strives, she tries, she would subdue her obscene love. Where has my mind led me? What am I plotting? Gods I do beseech, and too I call upon the piety I owe my parents. Check my sacrilege, prevent my sinning, if it is a sin. Parental piety does not exclude such love. The other animals pursue delight, and mate without such niceties. There's nothing execrable when a heifer is mounted by her father. Stallions, too, mate with their daughters, and a goat can choose to couple with his child. The female bird conceives from that same seed which fathered her. Blessed are those who have that privilege. It's human scruples that have stifled us with jealous edicts. Law is envious. What nature would permit, the law forbids. And yet they say that there are tribes in which the mother mates with her own son, the daughter with her own father, and the loving bonds so reinforced make families more fond. But I, to my misfortune, was not born among those tribes. Instead, I am forlorn, denied the very man for whom I long. But why do I keep coming back again to this? I must dismiss such thoughts, blot out my lust. Yes, Cinyras deserves much love, but as a father. Were I not his daughter, I could lie with him. But since I'm his, he can't be mine, and that close link dictates my loss. If I were but a stranger, I would have had some chance, but now I want to leave my native land. Nothing but flight can save me from so foul a flaw, and yet I stay. This evil ardor holds me here, that I may gaze at Cinyras, and touch and speak to him, and give him kisses if I cannot hope for more. Would you transgress beyond that? Can you let such sacrilege incite you? Do you know what holy ties and names would be confronted by your crimes? Would you be your own mother's rival and your father's mistress? Would you want to be a sister to your son, your brother's mother? And those three sisters, don't they make you fear? Their hair is wreathed with serpents, and they bear barbaric brands when they appear before the eyes and faces of unholy souls. Come now, your body still unstained, do not debauch your soul with lust, defile the code of nature with a lawless mating. Though you will it, nature will not have it so. For Cinyras is pious in his ways, a man of virtue. Would that he were prey to my same frenzy, to that passion's sway. These were her words. Now Cinyras, confused, does not know what to do. The suitors crowd, so many worthy men. He calls upon his daughter to select the one she wants, and he lists all their names. At first the girl is silent, staring at him she's in doubt, and warm tears veil her eyes. Her father thinks these tears are simply signs of modesty, forbids her weeping, dries her cheeks, and then he kisses her. She takes too much delight in this, and when he asks what kind of man she'll have her husband be, she answers, "One like you." Not understanding what is hid beneath her words, he praises her for this. "And may you always be so filial." When she hears him say filial, the girl lowers her eyes. She knows she's criminal. Midnight. Now sleep sets cares and flesh to rest, but Myrrha does not sleep. She cannot check the fire that feeds on her. She is held fast, her madness does not slack. First she despairs, and then is set to try. She is ashamed, but though she longs, she cannot find a plan. As when the axes strike the massive trunk, the tree will waver at the moment just before the final blow. One does not know which way it is to fall. Upon all sides men now rush off, so too enfeebled by so many blows from many sides, the mind of Myrrha leans this way then that. At last it seems no thing can check her love, bring rest except for death. On death she now is set. She rises from her bed, she ties her belt around a ceiling beam to hang herself. "Dear Cinyras, farewell," his daughter moans. "I hope you come to know why I would die." Then she begins to run the cord around her pallid neck. They say her murmurs reach the ears of her old nurse, who faithfully stood watch before the door of her dear charge. The nurse springs up at once. On opening the door, she sees her Myrrha readying the tools of death. In one same moment she cries out and beats her breast and tears her dress and snatches off the rope from Myrrha's neck. And only after that the nurse takes time to weep, to clasp her Myrrha, and to ask why she was driven to the noose. The girl is silent, speechless, staring at the ground. She's sorry her attempt at death was foiled. She was too slow. But her nurse insists. She bares her white hairs and her withered breast. She calls on all the days and nights she'd spent on Myrrha in the cradle, and she begs. But grief has brought her Myrrha to this pass. But Myrrha turns aside those pleas. She groans. The nurse is set on finding out, and so she promises not only to hold close the secret, but to help her. "I am old, but I'm not useless. If it is a stroke of madness that afflicts you, my dear girl, I know a woman who has charms and herbs to heal you. And if anyone has cast an evil spell on you, magic rites can purify you. And to cure your blight, you can bring offerings or sacrifice unto the gods, and so appease their wrath if they in anger led you to this pass. I've thought of all that could have brought distress. This house can only bring you happiness. Yes, all things here go well. Your mother and your father are alive and prosperous." As soon as she has heard those words, "Your father," the girl sighs deeply. But the nurse, although she has begun to sense that Myrrha's soul is sick with love, does not as yet suspect a passion so profane. And stubbornly she probes. She wants to hear in full the cause of Myrrha's pain. Whatever it might be, she hugs the tearful girl to her old breast, and holding Myrrha in her frail arms, says, I know you are in love, but set your fears aside, you'll find that I can help, and I shall keep your secret. Cinyras won't hear a word of this, but come, confess." The frenzied girl breaks loose and on her bed collapses helpless. As she sinks her head into the cushions, Myrrha cries, "Don't seek the source of this! Stop probing, I beseech! The thing you want to find is my foul crime!" At that, the girl's old nurse is horrified, and as she stretches out her hands that shake with years and fears, the old nurse falls. Prostrate before the feet of her dear girl, she pleads and menaces. She threatens to reveal the noose, to try at suicide, but then she promises to help if Myrrha will just tell the truth about her secret love. The young girl lifts her head against the breast of her old nurse. Its many tears she sheds. Again she tries, she would confess, but checks her voice. Ashamed, she hides her face within her robes and sighs. "Oh, how happy you, my mother, are beside the mate you chose." And Myrrha says no more, she only moans. Then through the nurse's body to the bone a shudder lances sharp and cold. She knows. Her white hair stiffens on her head. She tries with warning word on word to rid the girl from that dread love. And Myrrha knows the nurse's pleas are just, but she is set on death if what she wants cannot be had. At this the nurse says, "Live, or you will have your—" Daring not to utter "Father," she falls still. But then, before the gods on high, she vows to keep the promise she had made. And now their bodies clothed in snow-white robes, all pious wives were honoring the feast of Ceres. Her first fruits, the ears of wheat, were bound in garlands as an offering on these, the days they celebrate each year. This was the time when women, for 9 nights, shun union with their husbands. Any touch of man is banned. Cencreis, the king's wife, has joined the throng. She shares these secret rites. When, in her wretched zeal, the old nurse finds that Cinyras is drunk with wine, deprived without his lawful wife, she tells the king that a young girl is now in love with him. But she does not reveal the girl's true name, the girl whose beauty she is quick to praise. And when he wants to know the young girl's age, she says, "The same as Myrrha's." When he tells the nurse to fetch that girl, she runs to find her Myrrha, and, "My dear, we've won," she cries. "You can rejoice." The wretched girl is stirred, and yet her joy is not complete. A sad foreboding grips her heart, but she is glad. The virgin's mind is torn by such discord. The hour when all is silent now is here, and seen between the stars of the 2 bears, Bootes, veering downward with his wain, inclines his guide-pole. Myrrha makes her way to her misdeed. The golden moon now flies the sky. Black clouds conceal the stars. The night has lost its flaring lights. The first to hide their faces at the shameless sight were you, O Icarus and dear Erigone. Your daughter, she whose holy love for you had won her a starry place, her sacred due. 3 times young Myrrha stumbles on her path, an omen telling her she should turn back. 3 times the screech owl with his eerie chant warns her, but still the longing daughter moves ahead. Her shame is muted by the black of night. Her left hand grips her nurse hard fast, and with her right she gropes and probes. At last she's at the threshold, opening the door. And now she is inside the room. Her knees are trembling, and as blood and color flee, her face is pale. Her courage leaves. As she draws closer to her crime, her fears increase. The girl repents of her audacity. She would turn back if she could go unseen. As Myrrha hesitates, her old nurse takes her hand. She draws her toward the high bedside, consigns her to the king, and says, "Take her, O Cinyras, she's yours." And she unites those two in dark damnation. Cinyras obscenely welcomes to his bed the flesh of his own flesh. He helps her to defeat her virgin shame. He sets her fears at ease. Perhaps because she is so young, the king calls timid Myrrha daughter, even as she calls him father. So do they complete their sacrilege. They name their guilt in speech. Filled with her father, Myrrha leaves the room. She bears his impious seed within her womb, and on the 2nd night again they lie together. So it went, time after time, until the father, keen to recognize the girl he'd held so often, carried in a lamp, and saw his daughter and his sin. Struck dumb by grief, he pulls his gleaming sword out from its sheath which hung along the wall. And Myrrha fled. The night was kind, the shades and darkness favored her. The girl escaped her death. She crossed the open fields. She left palm-rich Arabia and Pangaea's lands. 9 times the moon had shown its crescent horns, and still she wandered on. At last she stayed her weary steps in the Sabaeans' land. Her womb was heavy now, so hard to carry. Not knowing what to hope for, torn between her fear of death and the fatigue of living, she gathered up her wishes and beseeched, "Oh, if there is some God to hear the plea of one who knows that she is guilty, I accept the death that I deserve. But lest I in my life profane the living, and in death profane the dead, do banish me from both these realms, transform me, and deny both life and death to me." And some god heard the girl confess her guilt. Her final plea was answered. As she spoke, the earth enclosed her legs. Roots slanted outward from her toes. Supported by those roots, a tall trunk rose. Her bones became tough wood, although her marrow remained unchanged. Her blood was turned to sap. Her arms became long boughs, her fingers twigs. Her skin was now dark bark. And as it grew, the tree had soon enveloped her full womb. Then it submerged her breasts and was about to wrap itself around her neck. But she, impatient, met the rising bark. She sank down, down, until her face was also bark. Her flesh had lost the senses it once had, but she still wept, and trickling down the tree tears fell. But even tears can gain long fame. Myrrh, dripping from that trunk, preserves the name of Myrrha, mistress of that tree, and she will be remembered through the centuries. But when the misbegotten child had grown inside the wood, it wanted to come forth to leave its mother. Halfway up the trunk, the pregnant tree was swollen. All the bark was taut with that full burden. But the pain and pangs could not find words. Though this is birth, there is no speech that can beseech Lucina. And yet the tree trunk bends and moans in labor. The bark is wet with fallen tears. Lucina takes pity. Standing near the groaning boughs, she lays her hand upon them, even as she speaks that spell which shepherds safe childbirth. At that the tree trunk cracked. The bark was torn. The tree delivered what had weighed it down. A living thing, a wailing boy was born, Adonis. And the Naiads set him on the tender meadow and anointed him with myrrh, his mother's tears. And even envy would praise his beauty, for indeed his body is like the naked Cupid artists paint. And to remove the only difference, just add a quiver to Adonis, or remove the quiver from the Cupid's form. The flight of time eludes our eyes, it glides unseen. No thing is swifter than the years. Yes, he who is the son of his own sister and his grandfather was but recently enclosed within a tree. But recently a newborn, then a handsome baby boy, Adonis has become a youth, a man. His beauty now surpasses what he was, inflaming even Venus's love, and thus avenging that dread fire, incestuous, which Venus made his mother Myrrha suffer. And this is how that vengeance came about. One day, as Cupid, son of Venus, kissed his mother unaware, he scratched her breast. An arrow jutting from his quiver chanced to graze her. Though the goddess felt the prick and pushed her son aside, the wound was far more deep than it had seemed to her at first. And Venus now is taken by the mortal Adonis's beauty. She no longer cares for her Cythera's shores. She cannot spare the time to visit sea-encircled Paphos and Cnidos, rich with fish, and she neglects her Amathus, the city rich with ores. She even finds the skies too tedious. She much prefers Adonis. She stays close to him. It is with him she always goes, and she, who always used to seek the shade, there she could rest at ease and cultivate her beauty, now frequents the mountain slopes, the woods, the rocks beset by spiny thorns. As if she were Diana, Venus keeps her tunic tied above her knees. She spurs the hounds and chases after game, that is, those beasts whom it is safe to hunt, the hares that leap headlong, the stags with branching horns, or does. But she is careful to avoid stout boars, rapacious wolves, bears armed with claws, and lions stained with blood of slaughtered birds. Adonis, she would warn you too to stay away from those fierce beasts. Be bold, she says, when you approach the timid animals, those who are quick to flee, but do not be audacious when you face courageous beasts. Dear boy, do not be reckless when the risk involves me too. Don't let me lose you just because you wanted glory. Don't provoke those animals whom nature has armed well. Your youth, your loveliness, the many things with which you have enchanted even me. Don't move the lion or the bristling boar. Don't touch the eyes and hearts of those fierce beasts. Those boars have lightning in their curving claws. The tawny lion's wrath is wild and raw. I do indeed detest that race. At this, he asked her why, and she replied, Adonis. You'll hear the answer now, an ancient crime which had a monstrous outcome. But since I am weary now, you see, I'm not quite used to such hard labors. Let us profit by the poplar here at hand. Its shade invites, and here along the grass we can recline. I want to rest beside you. She stretched out along the ground and held him close, for he had stretched out too, and pillowing her head upon his chest, the goddess, even as she mingled kisses with her words, began, Oh, you may have heard of Atalanta, one who, when she ran, would beat the fastest men. That was no idle rumor, for she won in truth. And, too, you would have found it hard to say if she was worthier of praise for her amazing speed or splendid grace. Now she had gone to ask the oracle about a husband. No, you have no need of any husband, so the god replied. You must shun any marriage. This advice will not be taken, though you stay alive. You will have lost yourself. Then, terrified by what the god had said, she lived unwed within the shadowed forest. To hold off the crowd of her insistent suitors, she set harsh conditions for her matrimony. Whoever hopes to have me, so she said, must first defeat me in a foot race. Bed and wife are what await the man who wins. For all of those who are too slow, it's death they'll get. These are the terms of this contest. Yes, she showed little pity, but her beauty was so entrancing that, despite the terms that Atalanta sent, a reckless crowd of suitors came to race that fateful course. Of those who took their seats to watch the race, one was Hippomenes. He had exclaimed, Can anyone be fool enough to risk his life to gain a wife? So he condemned those young fanatics' love. But when she sheds her clothes and shows her splendid form, much like my own, or what your beauty too would be, were you a woman, then Hippomenes, astonished, lifts his hands and cries, Forgive me, to whom I just rebuked. I do not know the value of the prize you wanted so. And even as he praises her, love grows. His hope that none would outrace Atalanta, his fear that some young suitor now may win, and this spurs jealousy in him. But why don't I risk too? Why not compete? He cries. The god helps those who dare. Hippomenes is pondering this course when she flies by as if her feet were wings. She seems to speed as swiftly as a Scythian arrow, but The young Aonian is even more astonished by the splendor of her form, a grace that is enhanced as she competes. She wears gold sandals on her rapid feet, her hair is fluttering over her white shoulders as, at the knees, the ribbons with white borders are fluttering, and all her young fair body is flushed with rose, just as a purple awning within a marble hall will lend white walls a darker hint, a veil, a shadowed tint. The stranger notices all of this, and now they cross the finish line, and she has won. A victor, she receives the festal crown of garlands. The defeated suitors go with heavy groans and pay the debts they owe. And yet Hippomenes is not dismayed and not delayed by their sad fate. He makes his way to her, eyes fixed upon her face. "Why seek such easy glory? Why outrace such sluggish men?" he says, "content with me. For then, if fortune gives me victory, your losing to so grand an enemy would not bring shame to you. For I can claim Megareus of Onchestus as my father, and he had Neptune as grandfather. Thus I am the great-grandson of one who rules the waters, and my worth does not belie my lineage. And if I meet defeat for having outraced me, Hippomenes, you'll gain unending fame." And as he speaks, the eyes of Atalanta take him in most tenderly. Oh, does she want to win, or does the virgin long to lose to him? So Atalanta wonders inwardly. Is there some god who, wishing to destroy fair youths, has willed the ruin of this boy, and prods him now to seek me out as wife and risk his own dear life? Were I to judge, it's hard to say that I was worth that much. It's not his self that stirs me, it's his years. He's young, and yet he's bold, a fearless soul. He's young, yet he can claim that he is fourth within the line of sons descended from the monarch of the seas. And he loves me, and wants so much to marry me, that if an evil fate should foil him, he will live no more. No, stranger, leave while you still can. Forget this savage marriage. Wedding me means sure fatality. No woman would refuse to marry you. You'll surely find a wiser girl to welcome you. But why must I, who've sent so many to their deaths, feel such distress for you? He can take care of his own self, then let him perish too, since, after all, the death of those who wooed was not enough to warn him off. He must be weary of this life. But that would mean he died because he wished to live with me. Is that a just, a seemly penalty to pay for having loved? My victory, if I should win, is not a thing to envy. Yet that is not my fault. Can't you renounce? But if you're mad enough to try, I would, that you might be more swift than me. Yes, yes, his gaze, his face have charm and tenderness. Ah, poor Hippomenes, I would that you had not set eyes on me. You were so worthy of life. If I were just more fortunate, if wretched fate had not forbidden me to marry, you would be the only one with whom I'd ever want to share my couch. Such were her troubled words. A neophyte whom Cupid now has touched for the first time, indeed she loves, but knows not that she does. But now the people and her father all call for another trial, as usual. Hippomenes, a son of Neptune's race, prays urgently to me, "O Venus, may I count upon your favor as I dare to face this test? And may you treat with care the love that has stirred in me." His plea was gentle, and it was a gentle breeze that bore that prayer to me, and I confess it moved me. But so little time was left. There is a field the Cypriots have called the Field of Tamasus. Within that isle there is no place more fair. In ancient times that field was set aside as sacred site, a holy place they add to my shrines. Within that field there grows a tree with leaves of gold. Its crackling branches also gleam with tawny gold. And when his gentle plea reached me, I was, by chance, returning from that sacred site. My hands were carrying 3 golden apples gathered from that tree. Invisible to all but him, I drew close to Hippomenes. I taught him how to use the apples. Blaring trumpets now announce the race's start, and from their crouch those two flash out. They skim the sandy course with flying feet. Indeed, one might have thought that she and he could even graze the sea, yet leave their feet still dry, or speed across a field of standing rain and leave the stalks untouched. Applause and shouts are loud. The crowd cheers on Hippomenes, and some cry out, "Go, go, this is the time to take the lead, to give it all you have, Hippomenes. Don't spare your speed, don't slack, and you will win." It's hard to say if this applause brought more delight to Megareus's heroic son or Scaneus's virgin daughter. Oh, as they sped, how many times did she, about to pass Hippomenes, relent and gaze at length upon his face until at last she raced ahead, reluctantly? And now his throat is weary, he is parched, he pants, and yet the run is long, the goal is still far off, and finally he drops the first of those 3 golden apples. Even as it rolls, she is enchanted by the gleaming gold. She veers off course to pick it up. The crowd applauds Hippomenes, who takes the lead, but she recoups her loss. A surge of speed once more. The girl has gained the lead, and when he throws the second apple, she retrieves that apple too, but passes him again. The final stretch is all that's left. He pleads, "O goddess, giver of this gift to me, do stand beside me now." And with all the force of youth he throws the gleaming golden fruit obliquely, distantly, off course. The girl seemed hesitant, uncertain of her choice, to let it lie or pick it up. But I compelled her. She went off, she picked it up. So she lost time, and too, the weight of 3 golden apples hampered her. So that's my story. Not take much longer than that race. I say she was outstripped. The winner led away his prize, his wife. But now, Adonis, I must ask you this. Did I not merit thanks for all I did? Did I not earn sweet incense to honor me? But he forgot completely. I had no incense, and no thanks from him. At that offence my wrath was spurred, and lest, in time to come, I ever suffer such a slight again, I saw that I would have to make them serve as an example. I incited my own self against that pair. One day they chanced to pass before the shrine that, to fulfill a vow that he had pledged, Actaeon built, a temple for Cybele, the mother of the gods, a shrine that stood concealed within the shadows of deep woods. The pair had journeyed long, they needed rest, and I ignited him. Hippomenes, such is my power as a deity, was struck with an indecent sudden need for Atalanta's body. Near that shrine there was a cave-like cell where little light could filter. It was vaulted by soft rock, the pumice of that place, a sacred cave where men had venerated deities for age on age beyond all memory. Indeed, a priest had set within that cell the wooden statues of the ancient gods. Hippomenes, on entering that cave, was quick to desecrate the sacred place with lust. The hallowed statues turned away their eyes. The mother goddess, turret crowned, was set to plunge the obscene lovers down into the waves of Styx. But then that seemed too slight a penalty. Instead she wraps their necks in tawny manes, their fingers take the shape of cunning claws, their arms are changed to legs, their weight moves forward to their chest, and they grow tails that sweep along the ground. Their faces harden now, they speak in growls, not words. The wild woods are their mating place. As lions they strike terror into all. But they indeed are tame. When yoked, they draw Cybele's chariot. They chap tight bits. Avoid those beasts, my boy, and any sort of animal that will not turn its back and flee from you, but, ready to attack, stands firm, chest forward. No, I would not have your daring damage you and ruin me. So did the goddess warn Adonis. Then she yoked her swans, rode off across the air. But daring is not keen to heed such warnings. By chance Adonis's hounds had caught a scent that led them to a wild boar's hidden den. The trial was sure. The boar was roused out of the woods. Adonis's spearhead caught the boar, a slanting thrust. With its curved snout, the savage beast worked free. He had torn out the spearhead stained with his own blood. The chase is on. He charges at Adonis now. The youth, in fear of his own life, runs hard, but he is caught. The boar sinks his long tusks into Adonis's groin. He fells him, and the boy lies prone along the yellow sands. On her light chariot Venus, who was drawn across the middle air by her winged swans, had not yet reached Cyprus. She heard far off the dying boy his moans. She turned around her white swans and rode back. When from the height she saw him lifeless there, a bleeding corpse, she leapt down to the ground. And Venus tore her hair, and, much unlike a goddess, beat her hands against her breast. She challenged fate, but destiny does not rule all. Adonis, your memory will live eternally. Each year they will repeat this final scene. Your day of death, my day of grief, will be enacted in a feast that bears your name. I shall transform your blood into a flower. If you, Proserpina, were once allowed the metamorphosis of Mentha, when you changed that nymph into a fragrant plant, the mint, can anyone begrudge me if I change the form of Cyprias's dear son? That said, she sprinkled scented nectar on his blood, which then fermented, even as bright bubbles form when raindrops fall on mud. 1 hour had yet to pass when, from that gore, a blood-red flower sprang, the very color of pomegranates when that fruit is ripe and hides sweet seeds beneath its pliant rind. And yet Adonis's blossoms have brief life. His flower is light and delicate. It clings too loosely to the stem, and thus is called anemone, born of the wind, because winds shake its fragile petals, and they fall.